Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. This is Laurie Smith, and this is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another Restoration. It is Tuesday morning, 6:30 here in the morning, and I'm just having coffee, waking up, and glad to be here. Glad to be able to do these shows, and hopefully you're having a good morning so far. And we'll get right into this. And just looking at, morning reflection, positive reinforcement for our healing journey. Looking at self-care, and today we'll try to look at some coping mechanism information from Irving Studios, Michael C. Irving, a sculptor and psychotherapist, who's also a survivor of child abuse. And then, looking at positive, maybe some meditation for the day. And so thanks for being here. I appreciate everybody who's tuning into my shows. And I hope if you're a survivor of abuse, you're getting something out of them. And I know that I do. It helps keep me focused on my healing journey and sort of holds me accountable to do the work that I need to do to continue on in my healing journey. And so, hopefully you're getting something out of this too. And so, we'll get started. And let's see, how am I feeling this morning? Morning reflection. How are we doing on our healing journey? Any particular things that we need to look to work on? To look at how are we feeling? How am I feeling this morning? I'm feeling good. I just I actually kind of woke up a little later than I should have, so I haven't been up all that long. But I feel pretty good this morning. Pretty hopeful, and not feeling too bad at all. And just glad to be doing these shows. Actually, I find them very helpful for myself. Safety checklist. You want to make sure you're safe enough to do. To listen to, anything like this, another survivor story, or anything to do with about abuse, right? If you're a survivor of abuse, you need to make sure that you're safe enough and far enough along in your healing journey before you listen to anything that I do about child abuse stuff, because you don't want to be triggered and then, find that you're having a difficult time, and you want to make sure that you know where you're at in your healing journey, whether or not you're safe enough, really, to listen to this sort of thing. And so if you're not sure how to, what to look for or how to go about that, the Adult Survivors of Child Abuse ASCA Survivor to Thriver Manual has a huge safety first section in their manual. It's like 60-something pages long. I think it's right around 60 pages long. And I read that a long time ago, and it's really worth looking at. So, and you can get that for free off their website, ASCA. That's a Morris Center program. It's a Survivor to Thriver Manual. And you can read it online, or you can get the PDF and download it. It's free. And there's lots of good information there. I actually went through that whole manual on my shows many years ago here. And looking at it was very helpful for me, and I still sometimes refer back to it for my own healing journey, right? So it was good, and I'm glad that I did that, and I'm glad that I saved it, and I still look at it every now and then. So how am I doing? I'm doing good, I think, this morning. We're going to look at Havoca's, Havoca.org, HAVOCA. They're Victim to Survivor to Thriver, a little thing that they have there. I think that's really interesting to gauge sort of where we're at. The victim might use the outer world to hide from self. Survivor possibly stays with the emotional pain. And the thriver, it says here, understands that emotional pain will pass and brings new insights. So that's the different stages. Victim uses outer world to hide from self. Yeah, that's kind of like, I wouldn't even say it. Maybe it is a form of denial, but it's more of a form of, what do you want to call that? That's sort of what I do, is sort of put things off, setting things aside. So I'll just get really busy in the world, and that way I don't have to deal with my pain and with my past, right? And that's what I did for many, many years. I never was really in denial about the abuse. I just, I had, because our abuse was documented, there was, my parents were brought up on abuse charges. Everybody knew that my parents were brought up on abuse charges, child abuse charges. And so it wasn't really like I could hide from it, but I just didn't deal with it and never dealt with it properly. And then basically used the world and stayed very busy and, focused on other things instead of focusing on what I needed to focus on until the age of 41 or 42 years old when I started my healing journey. So this can happen to people, survivor stays with emotional pain, and the thriver, I'm right in between the survivor and thriver. I'm still, staying with the emotional pain some, but the thriver understands that emotional pain will pass and brings new insights. So that's what I'm hopeful for, is that the emotional pain will pass. I think for me, I'm really more towards the thriver than I am the survivor on this one, because since I started doing my healing journey, I don't have the same amount of emotional pain that I was in when I first started my healing journey. So I have definitely made progress, and which is really great, because I was in a horrific amount of pain, and I know so many people have been there, and so many people are still there. That's why I like to do these shows, really to tell people, just to be an encouragement for people, to reach out and get some help. I'm really glad that I reached out and got some help instead of suffering on in my own pain by, it was destroying me, and until I reached out and got help, it was going to continue to destroy me, and I knew that. So I'm really glad that I did that, and that's why I like to encourage other people. Whatever way you do reach out and get help, some people everybody needs something different. We're all different. Whatever works for you. For me, it was just I didn't trust anybody really. I didn't trust counselors, therapists, or anything like that. So I went to anonymous help really, and got a lot of help anonymously. And that way, I felt protected. I felt secure and safe because I don't trust people. So that's the main problem. And I really didn't trust anybody with my information. And so I just thought, no, I'll tell the world, and I'll get help anonymously. And that's basically what I did. And because I believe in safety in numbers as well. Because I don't trust one-on-one, right? So I have a lot of trust issues because of my past, because of my pain, right? The abuse that I suffered from as a child. So many of us have these issues going on. So I found that anonymous help was very helpful for me. But some people are perfectly happy going to, a counselor. But I would say whatever you do, make sure that you get the help that you need, right? And Hovoka, this is a great website. I hope everybody will go check their website out. They have a section here, Hovoka Trust section, Rebuilding Trust. And we're finishing it up. This is the last portion of this trust page really that they have. And they said to rebuild trust, right? They said trust is easy to lose and difficult to rebuild. This is especially so when you or your partner has actually done things to engender a lack of trust. So this is like later in life if we're adult survivors of abuse, and then we get into these relationships, and then something happens, and the trust is broken, right? They said it's easy to lose and it's difficult to rebuild. So they said, especially so when you or your partner has actually done things to engender a lack of trust. So it says if you or your partner have been judgmental, unsupportive, untruthful, abusive, or unreliable, then you both need to pay attention to trust building behavior. And they said rebuilding trust takes time. It's a slow work, it says. Both parties need to be patient. And to rebuild trust, you need to follow through on agreements, stay open, express feelings, provide information, be truthful, be consistent, work on your problems. Don't ignore them. And admit your difficulties. Keep lines of communication open. And that says, yes, that means no sulking. Everybody has these issues in their life. It doesn't have to be just abuse survivors, every single person deals with this stuff on a daily basis because relationships, that's what it is, And it could be a friendship. It could be anything. It could be any type of relationship. It doesn't have to be an intimate relationship. It could be even a working relationship or, a business relationship. Everybody needs to follow through on agreements, stay open, express feelings, provide information, be truthful. This doesn't have to be just between a couple, right? Be consistent, work on the problems, don't ignore them. This is sort of what goes on in life in all relationships, really. And so, but it's the same thing between a couple, And so it's very important. Keep lines of communication open. And it says, yes, that means no sulking. So it says each of these things could be considered a heroic deed and will require hard work and dedication. And they said, remember, if it's worth fighting for, then it's worth making sacrifices. And it says, as you progress through the list, you will slowly feel better about yourself, and this will naturally increase your self-esteem. And most importantly, you need to remain talking. Communication, especially about the trust issue, will help you to belay any fears, and it will prevent you from bottling up those feelings and emotions. And it says, beyond this time will eventually heal the wound so that it doesn't interfere with intimacy and love. And we have a whole section on relationships. They said here they got a whole section on relationships. And it says, which consists of the following information: relationship skills, success, love, abuse, common problems, jealousy, unfaithfulness, sex and intimacy, conflict, and lots of exercises. So this is Hovoka. That's helping adult victims of child abuse, Havoca.org. Great. There's some really great information there, so I hope everybody will go check that out. So that's the last part of that trust article, and I just thought that was really interesting because so many times, survivors of abuse, especially, the trust is an issue for people, and because as children, the people that were whoever was to be looking after us or in the situation where whoever the wherever the abuse happened or whoever was responsible for that abuse, whether it was our parents or whether it was somebody else. The issue is this trust is broken. Somebody has messed up because a child should never be abused, right? And so the trust issue is definitely a problem for survivors of abuse and for anybody who's in even domestic violence situations. It doesn't have to be just child abuse, And so that's why I like to look at that information. It's helpful for me just to sort of run through it and see what I need to work on and what I still can work on and where I'm at sort of in that sort of situation. So that's the end of their trust article, but I thought that was really interesting. So what positive reinforcement here? What are we going to look at here? What are we doing right in our daily walk? So what am I doing right instead of looking at the negatives, Because it's so easy to get down on ourselves and be really harsh on ourselves. I know I'm really super harsh on myself as far as that stuff goes, because then I'll just won't want to do anything because I'll be like, well, there's no point in even trying. So I instead of doing that and being negative, I'm going to look at some positives. What am I doing right in my daily walk? Well, I've actually started trying to begin to look after myself, which is take some vitamins, eat healthier, get proper rest. I need to quit smoking. Smoking cigarettes, that's my big monkey. I need to, get some exercise. So I'm slowly working on this stuff, and it does take time. I mean, we're all busy. So, but at least I've started, and I think that's really good. So that's my positive. What's a positive affirmation here? I no longer feel the need to control others. So yesterday's was I look forward to each new day, and today I no longer feel the need to control others. I don't know if maybe people do feel the need to control others. I've never really been a control freak, but my problem is if somebody's not doing something properly or the way that I think they should, especially in relationship stuff, I'm not so much worried about what people do in their daily life. I actually people around me think that I really don't care about them because I don't spend a lot of time thinking about and worrying about and wondering about what they're doing, So I spend a lot of time in my own reflection and inflection. I don't know what you want to call that, but I don't personally babysit people to see what they're doing or feel the need that I need to control what they're doing. And people almost think that I don't care about them because I really don't care what they're doing. It doesn't make any difference as long as they're not bothering me or hurting me with what they're doing. So I don't know. I no longer feel the need to control others. I don't know if that's such an issue for me. My real problem is that if somebody messes up around me, then I'm just gone out of the relationship. I just leave. I don't try to control them. I'm just like, you're out of my life. Goodbye. I write them off. I write people off really easily. I have no problem doing it at all. And I end up hurting myself doing that because I lose friendships, lose relationships, lose jobs. It's my way of running. It's my way as an adult of saying, you're out of my life. Goodbye. It's a form of running, right? It's a form of not dealing with things, right? And as an adult, there's nobody abusing me now, thank God. But I still have these issues where, if I don't feel comfortable in a relationship, I'll just cut people out real quick. I don't even really give people sometimes a second chance. It's kind of like, no, you're gone, bye-bye. And because I'm just like at this point in my life so tired of people hurting me, I'm like, I'm done with that. You can't be decent and treat me right. Well, so I don't know if that's a form of controlling or need to control others or, I don't know. But this is something that we could say, I no longer feel the need to control others, right? We can't really help what other people are doing. But what we can do, like as far as this whole trust thing with Havoca was talking about this week and last week, is we can make sure that we assert ourselves and that people do know what our needs and our wants are in a relationship, any type of relationship, whether it's a friendship, a working relationship, business relationship, family relationship, or between our partners, our intimate partners. We need to let people know around us what our needs are and what our wants are, and also that people should respect that and treat us and afford us that dignity, you know what I mean, and respect our wishes and our needs and our wants, right? So as long as we're open and upfront with people, that's why they're saying, we need to keep the lines of communication open. That if we're open to keep that communication flowing, then eventually these things all start to work back in our favor, right? And so I'm learning how to do that, because as a child I could never say what my wants or needs were without being abused, right? Battered. I mean, if I said I needed something, my mom would beat me up, right? She was horrific. So basically I didn't say what I needed or wanted. I just didn't say much. It's, as an adult, I have the same problem, because if I say something at work, I feel like I'm going to be abused. If I say something, if I voice a need or a concern, even in a working relationship, working situation, then I feel that little child within me, that inner child, says, "Oh, we're not allowed to open our mouth because we're going to be abused. We'll be beaten. We'll be verbally assaulted. We'll be physically assaulted." Right? And so my inner children are always afraid of any type of thing like that, where if I voice what I need, then I'll be in trouble. So even at work, I'm like that. As an adult, I'm learning to recognize these things. It's taken me a long time, like I said, and many, many mistakes later, to deal with this stuff, right? It's not that I think my boss is going to beat me up. You know what I mean? As an adult, it's like I'm pretty tall and pretty strong. I can take people on myself. The issue is that wounded inner child making decisions for me. It's my inner self, my inner wounded inner self, my child self, who's probably 8, 10, somewhere in there, really young. You could be 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in there, making decisions for myself, adult decisions, which is horrible. So I'm having to learn how to deal with this stuff. And so it is very, very important that we do, right, get the information, get help, so that we don't allow ourselves to spiral downward, and end up, making all kinds of mistakes and basically hurting ourselves, which is really what it is. It's a form of self-sabotage, right? Terrible. Self-care, what am I doing physically, spiritually, emotionally to care for myself, and what can I work on? I'm looking at really physical stuff right now, looking at physical self-care, but I'm always looking at emotional self-care stuff too. Spiritually, I'm in a great position really right now. I always really have been since May 22nd, 2007, when I really officially began my healing journey. But, the other stuff I'm always still continue to work on all the time. Emotional self-care and physical self-care is an issue I keep putting off, and that's why I'm working on it now. We were looking at Irving Studios self-care information, physical release information yesterday, and this is the rest of it here. They said we can, now this stuff here, we have to make sure we're in a safe enough place to do this stuff. This is physical release, to release the emotions that we may have never dealt with from the abuse that we suffered as children. And this is really something I would say you have to be really careful with. I know myself, I'd like to do a lot of this stuff, but I can't really do it in the position where I'm at right now. It's not a good place for me to be doing this stuff. Like, for instance, you'll be able to see what I'm talking about. Allow yourself to cry or moan in a safe, supportive place. Now, I've done that on my own, and a lot of that on my own. But if my husband, he's terminally ill. So for me to sit and try to get him to be involved in this sort of thing so that he can help me to cry and moan out my pain is just not going to help him at all, because he stresses out when I'm upset, and he gets really upset when I'm upset, because he loves me so much that he hates to see me in pain, so it would bother him. So I basically, because of this situation, have to stay in a situation where I can't really work on a lot of this stuff around him, because he's terminally ill, he's very sick. And so, I can't do a lot of this work. But also, we have to be very careful that we're safe enough to do this type of work. Because I've been so down before that, I was wanting to self-injure and had been, had suicidal ideation most of my life, actually. And so, I know what it is to get so far down there that, the grief is just so heavy. I can't even bear it, So we have to be careful that we're not on our own trying to do this stuff and end up in a grief state that we can't come back from, So I would suggest that if you're going to try to do any of this stuff, they don't even suggest that here, but I'm going to suggest it, that you have a support person involved, because you do need to have somebody there. I'm not even going to try to do this stuff until I have a support person in place who I know is safe, and who I can trust, who will help me to get through this, right? So eventually I will be maybe doing this work. We'll see. It just depends on the situation with my husband because I really can't do it around him. It's just not possible. This I can do, breathe deeply to release heavy pain in the chest. Go somewhere safe and scream. I mean, I have no time to look for a safe place to scream. I really don't. I don't even have time to do anything. I don't have a vehicle. It's really difficult for me to get around. My husband's very sick, but a person could go somewhere safe and scream, and I wanted to do that years ago. I wanted to actually go out into a field somewhere, way, way out in the sort of in the wilderness somewhere, where I would feel safe enough that people wouldn't think I was being murdered, and scream my head off. But then again, I don't think you want to do that if you're by yourself. And I know myself, the type and amount of screaming that I'd be doing would probably ruin my voice. And I decided not to do that after all. But I need to. It's a release thing, right? So there's got to be something I could do. They said we could scream into a pillow. We could stamp our feet, right? They said we could pound with something in our hand like a foam bat. We could do things like use a stress ball, those little squeeze stress balls. Tear up newspaper, cardboard, telephone book, they said. We could build something with a hammer, trim the hedge. I would just say let's not be destructive, right? Because that's what I used to do quite often, would just destroy things. And I ended up destroying a lot of property, my own property and other people's property. That's not good. And, I lost a lot of my nice stuff because I destroyed my own things, mostly. And so that's really not good. That's not healthy. And that's, I like what they're suggesting here. Build something with a hammer. Build something instead of destroy something. At least in the end, you've got something there instead of destroying things. You've actually built something. So I think that's the better idea. Trim the hedge, throw rocks in the water, squeeze or pound clay. I've heard people say that's really helpful. Have a pillow or a marshmallow fight. Have a food fight. Whatever. But these are just physical release ideas, from his website. But there's lots and lots of that information out there in different places, different spots. So I just like to look at those to get some ideas of where I'm at, feeling where I'm at, so I can see what might help me out, what might not be a good idea right now. So we're all in different places right in our journey, and we have Avoca Survivors Bill of Rights. As a matter of personal authority, you have the right to. And yesterday was to decide for yourself whether or when or where to confront your fear. And today's is to learn by experimenting. That is to make mistakes, and that's important because, if we don't try, obviously we're going to make mistakes, because there's no perfect person on the planet. There's a lot of people out there that think they're perfect, which is really unfortunate. They're kind of fooling themselves. But the thing is, and it's true, there is no perfect person, and everybody messes up at some point, right? But some people, especially people who are survivors of abuse, like, for instance, like myself, rejection is a real problem for me. So when I make a mistake, I feel immediately that, I go back to that little place there where I was when I was being abused, that inner child, and, I'm just worthless. I'm useless. I can't do anything right, because that's what I was told as a child. I wasn't just told that. I was beaten severely, not on a daily basis, but quite often, and told that on a daily basis. I was actually verbally assaulted pretty well every day, physically assaulted probably once a week or twice a week. So, this is horrific when you grow up just this steady barrage of, you can't do anything right, you're worthless, you're useless, and being abused physically, emotionally, psychologically, verbally, it's horrific. And so as an adult, when I make a mistake, it's a setup for me for a problem, because I don't want rejection. I want people to love me, like what I'm doing, care about me. So even as an adult, in a working situation especially, if I make mistakes, I have a tendency to be to think that I'm going to be in trouble, and that this trouble's going to be severe, because that's how it was for me as a child. And so, then I decide that I don't want to work here anyway, and I quit the job. See, self sabotage, right? And so what I've learned now, since I started my healing journey, about a few years into it, was talking to a lady who was life coach, and she was like, you can keep running if you want, but that's what you're doing. I was talking to a life coach about my work situation, because something had happened at work. I actually made a huge mistake at work, and was going to quit the job. And this life coach from the working place contacted me, and she's like, I was so upset, and I told her, I said, look, you don't know my past or anything, but I was abused as a child horrifically, and so I have a real problem with this kind of stuff, and maybe it's just better that I go. And she's like, you can keep running if you want. That's your choice. You can run from life, you can keep on running. Or you can face the situation and realize that I mean, everybody makes mistakes, you know, and you can get your needs met here, and you can also know that everybody makes mistakes, you know, and that, you know, you're a person too with rights that should be afforded to you, you know, and that you don't have to quit this job. You can work it out, you know. And so I actually did. I worked it out with my boss and everything, and who actually then took on the responsibility for the mistake, which I felt really bad about because I'm the one that did it. But the thing is I've always been running, you know. And I mean, at the age of 18, I had a car accident that busted my ankle, and I could no longer run, so I couldn't physically run. So then but then I have cars. You know, I had cars. I would run with cars. I ran 2,000 miles north to Canada. I've been running really my whole entire life, right? And so I've had to stop doing that and face things, right? And know, yeah, we are going to make mistakes. No one's perfect, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm all those horrible things that I was told as a child or made to feel. To learn by experimenting is to make mistakes, and I have the personal authority and the right to do that, right? Because nobody's perfect. Personal Bill of Rights, that one is Charles H. Whitfield, and that's MD, Healing the Child Within. We're looking at number 11. I have the right to terminate conversations with people who make me feel put down and humiliated. That's exactly right. I have no problem with that. It says I have the right to terminate conversations with people who make me feel put down and humiliated. Yeah, we have the right to protect ourselves from any further abuse. That's very important. So Irving Studios has this thing on coping lists, and you can go to his website just by typing in, it's www.irvingstudios.com, or just type into your browser Child Abuse Survivor Monument. You'll get there. He's got this thing where he's talking about coping mechanisms. This is daily, weekly activities to take care of herself, right? And he says, as far as coping lists go, stability and well-being are greatly anchored by being surrounded by the ordinary, nurturing, and looking after oneself, right? It says, when you are not overwhelmed by memories or stress, most of the requirements and concerns of self-care seem obvious and straightforward. It says, but trauma has a way of blurring the ordinary as the extraordinary surfaces and seems to take precedence. So the following are some ideas for the kinds of things that may go on in a daily or weekly activity or take care of yourself list. So we can make these lists, right? So these are not presented as a comprehensive list, and they're not the right list for any one particular person. So it's important for you to come up with your own personalized coping strategy list. That's right, because we're all different. We all need different things. We're all in a different place in our healing journey. But whatever works for us, we need to write these down. And I started learning that from him years and years ago when I started my healing journey, and found his information, which I would say would have been 2009. So it's been a long time now. 2009, at least 8 years almost, that I've been looking at his website off and on. And I realized that I needed to start paying attention to what works for me, what doesn't work for me. And, journal, make lists. We could make a daily, weekly activity list or take care of yourself list, whatever it is. And then whatever's working for us to coping mechanisms, we need to write it down. And because that way it's there for us. And then, 6 months down the road, 8 months down the road, a crisis comes, and we can't seem to handle it. It's overwhelming. We go to our list and find out what was working for us before that was helping us to cope, right? Very important. So we'll continue on with that tomorrow. Brainy Quote has a great quote here. This is sort of like positive, meditation really for our day to energize us, to give us a little backup here. Winston Churchill says, never, never, never give up. This is from Brainy Quote. So that's what I say to you. We have about a minute left here. Never, never, never give up. That's Winston Churchill. I say that all the time. Never give up. Never, ever. Because, we do deserve to have a good life, We do deserve the help, to get help, the help that we need. So we have to be our own best advocates, So if you're struggling and you're having a hard time and you just don't know what you're going to do, you need to reach out and get some help. Even if it's calling anonymously, like a crisis line, like I say, you do what you have to do to make sure that you get the help that you need. And if you don't trust anybody, just call a crisis line. If you don't have anybody in your life to talk to, which so many times we don't, right? Almost like 99% of the time we don't, right? So you get down to that point, you have no one to talk to. You do the right thing and you make a call. There's people sitting on the other end of those lines, like myself, who I actually want to do crisis lines, but I can't do crisis lines right now because my husband's terminally ill, and they won't allow me to do it. And so it's something I'm very much interested in doing. So it's like, if you're having a hard time, you call somebody, you get some help. And I wish all of you a really wonderful day. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.